before we get to that, Andy, you're bringing a friend along this week. Introduce us to Dr. David Horne, my friend. Who is this man?
Dr. David Horne, an interesting sort of character. He's originally from the West Midlands, of course, and he's assistant professor of physics at Gunning University at Erie, Pennsylvania. And I knew him since he was 11-12 years old, when his amazing father, Mike Horne, is sadly no longer with us. He was worked as an engineer with me doing projects for space science, would you believe? And his son, his son had an interest in astronomy, thought it'd be something to be good for him. And he dragged him along, not really kicking and screaming, but dragged him along to Walsall Astronomical Society, as it then was, where I used to be heavily involved. And we really started to encourage him to do things in astronomy, because he wasn't getting that level of encouragement from his school.
Okay.
In fact, far from it. And that's really why it is quite important, because now, of course, he went from being at the Astronomical Society to an assistant professor of physics. Very proud of him indeed.
Excellent. All right, then. Dr. David Horne, welcome to talkTV, my friend, live from the United States of America. How are you, David?
I'm good, thank you very much. How are you guys there?
Yeah, really good. Oh, look how excited Andy is to see you. He's very excited to see you.
I introduced me as an interesting sort of character. That's the nicest thing anyone said about me all day.
All right, give us a bit of a sense, David, of some of the stuff that you've been working on, including some work around Mars as well, in particular.
Well, at this point, what haven't I worked on is kind of where I am. If there's a guiding sort of theme to the work that I've done, it's really looking at the infrared and looking at infrared astronomy, which of course is becoming even more important now. We've got things like the Webb Space Telescope, which is an excellent infrared device. But yes, I started out doing some research into Mars, which I did for a year as an undergraduate, which I took advantage of. And I was looking at dust storms in the southern hemisphere of Mars. And I was looking at that with visual images, and then I transitioned into using infrared technology to actually look at where the dust was and where the cloud was and what the coverage was in those areas, especially in the Hellas region of Mars, which is towards the south by the South Polar Cap.
And what did you find?
A lot of dust and a lot of cloud. Well, the interesting thing with Mars is that it occasionally has these blow-ups where the entire planet will have a global dust storm and dust will just go completely crazy and shroud the entire planet. And sometimes you'll have the same conditions from year to year, and sometimes you'll have this global dust storm and sometimes you won't. And part of my work was taking a look at what happens in the run-up to one of these storms. I was using the Mars Global Surveyor probe, which has since died, but at the time was giving us the best data we'd ever seen for many, many years. So we had multiple Mars years of data and observations that we could look at. And we were taking a look at that and trying to figure out, is there something special about one year versus another? Where does the dust pop up from? Where do the storms begin? And we found some very interesting, very compelling data, but like most observations, more and more are needed. We're really getting to the point now where we've been observing Mars now consistently for decades. So the answers to these things are zeroing in bit by bit. But I saw at least one global dust storm and a lot of regional dust storms, and looked at the coverage, looked at the clouds, really became a weatherman for Mars for a little while there.
Oh, wow, brilliant. How fascinating is that? Isn't that interesting? Wow. And you've done quite a bit of work on infrared observation as well, haven't you? Well, can you explain infrared observation and how that works?
Well, when you're using visual images, that's what you're seeing with your eyes. And there's only so much that's going to tell you. If you actually want to look at the mechanisms, you want to say, look at the heat budget in an atmosphere of a planet, or if you're looking at a disk around another star, a disk of rocky material or dust, or you're looking at a cloud, an interstellar cloud in the sky, you really want to figure out the chemistry. You want to figure out, what are these things made of? Where's the heat? What are the transitions in all the atoms and all the little molecules there? And the way to do that is in the infrared, because that's where most atoms, most molecules become excited, and you can look at the spectra. So most professional astronomers, don't look through an eyepiece anymore. When you go to a professional telescope like Mauna Kea, and you're using the Keck telescope or something like that, you don't really look at an image, you're looking at a graph. And you're looking at the graph and you're trying to identify components. Do you see carbon dioxide? Do you see silica? What is it that you see in the spectrum? And that's why we use the infrared part of the spectrum so much, and that's why the Webb telescope and instruments like that are going to be so wonderful to us, because they're really going to delve deeper into that for us.
Right. Wow, fascinating. How interesting. And so, Andy, you alluded to it already, but David's story of how he came to, doing what he does now in the United States of America is really important, isn't it?
It's critical, because the lady that called us a couple of weeks ago, I had the feeling she was running into some blocks, as what she does with her child who was really excited about astronomy. Where do they go? And you can run into a lot of brick walls, I'm afraid, in the general system of education, even now. And therefore you need somewhere to go. And I was directing her outlet directly to an astronomical society, because that's where you're going to have other people who are enthusiastic. They're actually very practical people. They're very pragmatic, and they do the work, and they're also very friendly. A little bit crazy, but that's important too. And therefore, you can actually bring somebody into something which is, it's not in more of a social environment, but you're learning and playing and learning and learning and playing and learning and learning and learning. And the next thing you know, you've got that much knowledge, you need to take it further. And that's what you do in an astronomical society. You take these young people, if they're interested, and sort of feed them a little bit and see what they like. And if they really go for it, they will then take it further. And Dave is a great example of that.
And Andy, I think you have a bit of a surprise for David, don't you, while we're here?
Oh, yes, we have a nice picture. I think you've got it, haven't you, there, of when we first saw Dave at one of our astronomical... Oh, that's a later picture, that is. That's a later picture of us at a Star Trek bar in London. The astronomy group had a small Star Trek group, and there's the early picture. And there's Dave, 11, 12-year-old Dave, in the middle of that picture.
Thank you.
And on the right of the picture, there's me. I had a beard in those days. Dressed up in actually a tank suit to keep warm while we're doing the astronomy work there. And there you are, Dave. There you are, as a nice little boy. That's how we first met you.
Thank you very much. You can see my fashion sense has improved in the intervening period.
Very sweet. So very sweet. But that's great, I mean, being that kid that was sort of really enthusiastic about space and stuff, but then getting the chance to do it and to have a group of people who would take you under their wing and show you what, and sort of point you in the right direction and fill the gaps that school perhaps had left, was clearly really important.
It was absolutely crucial, really. The school system, it has its limits, and I wasn't really receiving any encouragement to go the direction I wanted to go into. If I said I wanted to go into a science subject, people were suggesting I do health and safety. Not that that's not important, but it's a far cry from astrophysics. So people like Andy and the people I met at Warsaw Astronomical Society you saw in that picture there were really crucial in making sure I was, enthusiastic and I could have access to a lot of the knowledge that they had. And as you saw as well, there's a picture of us in Starfleet uniforms there. One of the guiding things we had as well was that we took our subject very, very seriously, but we didn't really take ourselves very seriously. And kind of had some fun while we were along the way. Yeah. It wasn't just grim sort of teaching that people were doing to me. We were really, we were having fun, and I was picking a lot of stuff up by osmosis and by conversation. So it wasn't like school 2 that I was going to. Nice. I was meeting a lot of really good people with a lot of practical knowledge, and it was absolutely crucial to encourage, a younger boy who was kind of disillusioned with how things were going.
And just briefly, David, because we're about to hit a break, but in about 60 seconds, if you will, what are you working on next? What's on the horizon?
Well, on the horizon, I'm working on some two-dimensional fluid dynamics experiments, and also there is the 2024 eclipse, which is passing right through Erie, which I'm getting set up for right now, and is going to be a very big event in this area and across the entire USA.
When you say set up for, what do you mean by that?
I mean planning the observations and getting all of the equipment together and the people together and all of the infrastructure together to really accommodate the public at large and to educate people how to safely observe the eclipse when it comes.
Love it. Okay, good man. Or maybe we'll get you back on then when that happens, and we can.
I'd love to.
Oh, we can talk about it. Oh, there's a cat in the background. Oh, I mean, as if this segment could have got any better. And it
there
just
you go.
It's got everything. The cherry on the cake of this segment is that beautiful, beautiful cat.
Feline intervention.
Yeah, exactly. David, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate it. And the moral of the story as well, by the way, the really important moral of the story is if this is something that you are interested in, join an astronomical society. There are people.
Call your local astronomical society.
Your tribe is out there. Go find them, for sure.
They are.
Thank you, David. Really appreciate it. Andy Lound, space expert, with us as well. More with Andy next. And your questions. We'll get to Matt, who is in Derbyshire, and James in West Yorkshire, who's got a question for Andy. And we're going to hear what happened when, speaking of young enthusiasts for space, when an 8-year-old girl managed to use a ham radio to speak to the International Space Station this week. It's a cracking story, this. Absolutely beautiful. So sweet. We'll play you what happened when she managed it before 3 on talkTV. Stay right there.